evening and welcome to our HOA workshop today. I'm excited to see you here and very thankful that you all signed up and showed up. I know coming on a weekday evening is sometimes a pain, so we really do appreciate your time and attention. And so I'm Betsy Kellums. I'm the City of Greeley's Historic Preservation Planner, which may make you question why I'm here, but I'm also the Neighborhood Resource Office person. So I coordinate the HOA workshops, and as I said, I'm very happy to welcome you all to this workshop. This is our City Savvy workshop, so we will be talking about city-related issues, and all the presenters are from the city. And with that, I would like to introduce our first presenter, and that is Amy Freeland. She's a communication and engagement specialist. And I'm sorry, I think I just butchered her title.
That's okay.
From the Communication and Engagement Office. Oh, outreach.
Yeah.
Anyway, she does outreach for the city. So she's going to talk about our city projects that we have going on right now. And then after that, we will transition to another presentation. Amy, would you like to come? Thank you for presenting, and thank you all for coming today. Yeah.
They know me too well. So good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Amy Freeland. So Betsy, I'm still learning myself. So community outreach and engagement specialist with the city, and that title is fairly new for me. So it's something new that I'm learning within our department as well as within the city. So our director for the communication and engagement department was supposed to be here this evening, but as it would be after our State of the City event last night, she had some prior engagements, so you get me. All right, so we're going to go through, I've got lots of information to give to you, just some Greeley insights, and then we'll get you to our other presenters for this evening. So we'll just start out very quickly. I'm going to give you a brief overview of some of the major projects and initiatives that are taking place in Greeley that we want you to know about. So now I have to get used to hitting the button. All right, so just a little bit tidbits of information. Some of you may already know some of these things, but I learned a few things. So Greeley, as I mentioned, we had the State of the City address last night. And during that, we celebrated Greeley's 140th birthday. So April 6th was actually Greeley's birthday, if you did not know that. And so I hope some of you were able to attend the event. And if not, it was recorded. We'll have it available on our YouTube channel for the city. Another little tidbit of information, I always think these were interesting because when I moved to Greeley, the edge of town for me was about 70, it wasn't even 71st, I think it was about 59th-ish. So right now, the theoretical center of the city is at 59th Avenue and 16th Street. You can visualize that. But the population center of the city is 28th Avenue and 16th Street. Very interesting. I thought that was interesting. And it's kind of close to my house, so I was like, oh gosh, I'm in the center. So this is good. Other bits of information, our 2024 community survey revealed that 70% of our residents are satisfied with Greeley as a place to live, and Greeley's performance exceeded the mountain region average in 38 out of 58 categories that it was assessed. So at least then we're looking great. Currently, city's 2026 budget is $508 million. And right now, after I talked with our budget folks, it says they're maintaining a 2-month general fund reserve of $28 million. That is per charter, and an additional $4.8 million for revenue stabilization. Anticipated growth over the next 6 years will equate to picking up the town of Steamboat Springs, so if you've ever been to Steamboat, and plopping it on Greeley. So what that means is we need sustainable, diversified growth, and we are seeing more of this, and we're working towards that. As far as jobs and businesses, Greeley currently has 3,476 business licenses. That was as of March of this year. Employment has grown over 2.9% in the last year, and that's roughly a little bit over 51,000 jobs in the Greeley area. All right, so now we're getting into the nitty-gritty, the major projects. We're just gonna run through some of these real quick and give you a few more details. So the first one up is our downtown civic campus that you may have heard about. This originally started with the Downtown 2032, the Past Forward, which launched in 2022. This is a plan, it's a long-term plan that was meant to guide growth, investment, and create a more vibrant, inclusive downtown. So some of the areas that we're focused on was land use, infrastructure, housing, public spaces, and economic development. Ironically, at the same time that we were putting this plan together, the city, Will County, and School District 6 were all beginning to evaluate their facilities and their needs for their growth. Eventually, they all realized they kind of had shared goals and had an opportunity for some collaborative redevelopment. So what has emerged from that and from that plan is the creation of the Civic Campus. So the Civic Campus is the first step of implementing that plan, the Downtown 2032, and is meant to align long-term planning with immediate city facility needs. So this gives you kind of an idea of what that looks like. It's still in the design phase at this point, but what it looks at is exploring redevelopment of 4 to 5, about 16 acres blocks in the downtown core. And it gives us a chance to kind of reshape and revision the future of downtown. It includes the Civic Campus, revitalization of Lincoln Park, increasing housing and residency density, expanding business and economic opportunities, and as I mentioned before, working closely with the county and other stakeholders in the downtown area, in hopes to spark some growth, strengthen the economy, and bring some new energy to downtown. Again, partnership with Will County District 6, as well as Richmond Vertical. This project, the hope is that we retain over 1,000 jobs in downtown and bring approximately 500 new county and 100 private sector employees downtown. So that's obviously going to increase some activity and some demand for local businesses. And of course, we know that means there needs to be some clear communication and support for a project like this. So we'll just continue to keep informing and letting you know about what's happening with that project. One of the things that people usually ask us about is, what's the timeline for this? We kind of do that ourselves. So next slide. This gives you a little bit of a visual of what the timeline illustrates for financing, design development, and community engagement alignment to keep the project on track. These dates reflect the current work schedule. I will tell you that it's always kind of moving, but this is where we are at as of today. And it will continue to be refined as milestones are reached and funding decisions are finalized. So just gives you an idea of what we're looking at for the various areas. And I will mention, if you weren't able to see it on the map, the font, I'm sorry, is very small. It does include a new city hall, a new District 6 administration building, a boutique hotel, parking garage, and then a new justice center for Will County. So coming up next, we're going to continue to have, there's a huge project team. They meet every Wednesday to go over this project and all of the details entailed with that. So we got regular coordinating meetings with county, city, and school districts. We're continuing to finalize land trade agreements. There's some land swapping that's going on, and finalizing the design of the new city hall, estimated costs, and the build construction budget. If you want more information about this project and to kind of watch it as it continues to unfold, we encourage you to go over to speakupgreeley.com. There is there's a box and it says Downtown Civic Campus. You click on that and there's all kinds of information there about the project, documents, as well as links to prior council meetings where they discuss the topic. So a little bit of everything there for you. All right, so let's talk about the East Area Plan. I want to start, we were just talking about elephants in the room, so here's the elephant in the room, Betsy. We hear a lot about West Greeley and things that are happening in the West area, and there is a West Area Plan. So again, this is like long-range planning. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that we are also doing the same thing for the east side of town. And that is always a concern. So I wanted to make sure tonight we highlight this a little bit for you. So the map here, the yellow line is kind of the border of the area. You'll notice that in some places it's a little fuzzy. That is by design. There is no exact line in some of the places, but because it kind of moves just a little bit. But this does sit on the eastern edge of downtown, and it acts as a transition into the more rural parts of Greeley, the further east that you go. Within this area, we have the University of Northern Colorado, we have the airport, we have tons of like agricultural businesses. We have 2 river corridors that are in this area, which have key natural features. It's a mix of neighborhoods, it's a mix of industrial and ag uses, so it's a really, really diverse area that's in this plan. The plan, as that's been worked on, or is being worked on, focuses on how the area will grow and develop over time. So that includes housing, parks, open spaces, and overall quality of life. We're also looking at sustainability and long-term resiliency. And just as important, and this has been something that's just continues that we keep hearing from folks, especially on the east side, is how people get around. Whether they're driving or biking or walking, how do they access more parts of Greeley when you have Highway 85? And there's all these various barriers that are there. And how do they create the same kind of flow and accessibility across the city, east and west? So those are all things that have to be looked at. And we're also looking at future land use and development. So as I mentioned, very rural area, lots of farms, lots of large farms. And some of them, I say some, there are quite a few of them that have been passed down generation to generation. So what do we do with that? What does that look like? What do they want their land and their spaces to look like in the future? So part of this also is looking at amenities. Next slide. All right, so just like we have across Colorado and in Greeley and other parts of the nation, there's a growing need for housing and services across all income levels. And we're also seeing a demand for industries like energy, logistics, and advanced manufacturing. So at the same time, there's also this interest in creative spaces and placemaking. So it's like, ooh, we're creating, there's a lot, right? A lot of desires and needs and amenities that people want to see. For those that maybe haven't been to the east side, there's not a grocery store. There's not a hospital or a clinic. So some of these amenities that we're kind of used to, central, western Greeley, they don't have on the east side. So we have to think about that. What would they like to have there, and what don't they want, right? Do they want growth, or do they want cookie cutter houses? No. Many of them want to keep that agricultural look, but there's a balance there. So there will be an update that will be coming out to council on April 28th at the council work session, where they'll give an update on this plan if you're interested. Part of what they've done for their research, obviously, is doing the data and all the good stuff that comes with it. Where's the roads? What are the barriers? They also did a survey where they had about 600 surveys that were completed by folks on the east side, as well as meeting with individual landowners. So the ones that I mentioned before that, it's like we've been here for 4 generations. What are we going to do with the land? Do we want to keep that? Or do we want to develop? Or do we not want to develop it? So all that's coming together, so you can go watch the council meeting, or council work session, on April 28th and get that great update. You can either go to Council Chambers, that's located downtown, or you can watch that on our Government Access Channel, GTV8. Or you can also go to greeleyco.gov and go to our city meeting portal, and you can watch the meeting from there. All right, so a few other, those were kind of the bigger ones with a lot of information. So we'll hit a few other things that are happening very quickly here. You've maybe heard about our Homeless Solutions team. They've been doing a lot of work in the community. The Homeless Solutions Outreach Team operates 365 days a year. They work with those that are experiencing homelessness in Greeley and meeting people where they are at. Their mission is to make homelessness rare and brief in Greeley. Easier said than done. Despite limited funding this year, the team has provided, so when I say this year, I'll step back, 2025. Gosh, it's already, okay. Anyway, they provided, I love these numbers, 6,274 outreach services and helped to house 114 households through hotel to housing initiatives. So they're a very, very busy group. They're out in the community trying to help as many people as they can, and in turn also helping businesses and various neighborhoods that may have concerns, but they're there to help. So next up, we have addressing housing insecurity. So affordable housing affects everyone, not just low-income folks. The Housing Solutions Department works to provide housing for all income levels, so more Greeley residents can afford to stay in Greeley despite rising costs. So these are just a few examples of the work our housing team does to support the city's Housing for All initiative. Got those there. All right, ooh, merge. Okay, here we go. So this is a public works project you may have heard about. This is a big one. And what it is, so MERGE is an acronym for Mobility Enhancements for Regional Growth and Equity. It is a public transit project. So it will build new US 34, so south of town, interchanges at 35th Avenue and 47th Avenue. And then it's also going to include a new mobility hub at Center Place. So if you know Center Place Shopping Center, there'll be a mobility hub there. This includes, so just visually, flyovers so that traffic continues to flow from north-south, east-west. It also increases connectivity between like the other side of the road, so like Evans as folks want to come over. And like I said, you'll have that mobility hub there, so people will be able to walk safely under that highway and connect to bus, bike, micro mobility options, all of the above. So you've got multi-transportation components that are a part of this. The goals of this is pretty big. So they're hoping to reduce approximately 40% of the crashes on US 34. There's a time when US 34 was one of the highest accident and death rates at those two intersections. So this project is to help with that. Let me see here. Okay, yeah, so I already mentioned about the mobility hub. It's gonna bring together public transit, biking and sharing programs, getting people where they need to go. Again, create a safer pedestrian connection from north-south and different sides of town, decrease air pollution. It's always, public transportation is always a great way to reduce our air pollution and increase consistency and dependability of travel times along US 34. If you've traveled that, you know. So what's happening next with this project? The city is going to begin hosting some stakeholder meetings and community meetings starting this summer. I don't have exact dates, that's in process, they're working that out, but make sure you keep your ear to the ground and listen in on that, take a chance to learn more about the MERGE project that's going to be happening in South Greeley. I will just say as a sidebar as well, that it may not seem like it's that important for some people, but it will impact travel. It's going to impact commutes to work. And it's going to impact businesses. He's laughing, but I'm just being honest, right? So stay involved, stay in the know, and check it out. Again, Merge is also on speakupgreeley.com. There's a whole page on it. There's maps that show you what those flyovers look like. These pictures here are they're tiny, but it'll give you a better idea of kind of what that flow of traffic is going to look like. Big, big project. So, okay, next.
When do they anticipate starting? I mean,
finishing.
they're just having meetings, but when are they actually going to start?
That's all going to depend on funding. And it's not because most of the project is being funded through federal grants, which right now, we're all waiting. Yeah. So in the meantime, the work continues. They've got design work to figure out. They've got to figure out water and electric and all of those things. So they're continuing to do those things, but we're still just kind of watching the funding and seeing what's going to happen there. There's also a requirement of a match with the city. So we're prepared for that. We're just waiting, but not waiting. Okay, so next up, we have the airport, which is located on the east side. We're back to the east side again. Alongside with the FAA, I knew I was going to mess that up. We began planning for a future development out at the airport to expand and become a commercial and general aviation national airport over the course of several decades. The expansion will support growing population travel needs, create jobs, and provide new economic development opportunity. One of the things that they're really looking at out there is to make sure that the runways are ready for some larger airplanes. So that's probably the most visible thing that's happening out there. And if you've seen in the Tribune and other articles that their funding continues to come in to support that project. So it's a great opportunity. All right, next up is Vision Zero. In January, so a little over a year ago, Greeley City Council adopted a Vision Zero resolution. So the resolution aims to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries on city streets by 2045. So that Vision Zero name and program, it is global. This is a global traffic safety initiative. So this isn't something that we just kind of pulled out and said, we're going to try this. It's proven. Lots of cities, lots of very large cities, metropolitan cities have used this. We've brought it here to Greeley. So it is endorsed by the U.S. Department of Transportation, and the objective is to create a transportation system that prioritizes safety as a policy. So as I said, Greeley City Council has adopted this. Right now, so imagine an umbrella, you have Vision Zero umbrella, and underneath that umbrella, we have a couple of projects that have already begun that are aimed to support this and to help make this happen, right? The reduction of traffic deaths and serious injuries. One of them is called Safe Streets and Roads for All. The second is Safe Routes to Schools. So the Safe Streets for All is a federal program that pays for local safety improvements. Greeley received a $7.9 million grant, plus about $1.9 million, almost $2 million, in local funding from the Transportation Development Fund. And what this is going to do is create visible changes to like high-risk locations. So they've gone in, they've looked at the data and said, we can make some improvements here and see if we can reduce those accidents, reduce deaths, make traffic flow better. And so you're going to start seeing some of those. You'll probably hear a little bit more about that initiative as well. Last I heard, there were approximately, this number just blows my mind, about 80 locations that they are looking at across the city. So it's not just in one specific area, it's across the entire community. Each of those areas they've studied, and they've come up with like a pilot for each of them. Okay, we feel like maybe this one needs to have a raised sidewalk, temporary. Maybe this one needs to have better striping, better lines. So they've kind of gone in and done an analysis on each of those 80 areas, have a plan in place. They're getting ready to start meeting out with everybody in the public and say, what do you think of this? Again, if you head over to speakupgreeley.com, there is actually a map there that you can interact with. So you can look specifically at the different areas that they're going to be working on, and you can make comments. I think this is a great idea. Hey, what about this over here? So you just pull over a pen and you make your comment. So it's a great way to let the consultants and the public works staff that are working on this kind of know your thoughts. So you'll start to see that out in the community. I mentioned, and I'll mention it again, this is pilot, right? So they're trying it out. That's what the money is for, is to kind of get things going. They'll do the data, they'll see what the improvements are, and then look at making those things more permanent. So it could be coming to your neighborhood, so check out that map. The other one that I mentioned was the Safe Routes to School. So right now there are about 400 of those programs nationwide. Again, we've got one here in Greeley now. What it does is serve school communities by creating safe, equitable environments for traveling to and from school, while providing opportunities for physical activities for those kids, lower obesity rates, reduce risk for children, their families, and caregivers. So staff have already started meeting with the schools to talk about this program, what that can mean for their students, for their families. They're very excited. All I've heard is they can't wait for it to get going. So that is happening in conjunction with the Safe Streets for All. So lots of things that are happening to make our streets safer. Again, head on over to speakupgreeley.com for more. All right, we were just about there. Okay, next up, so we had a news release that just went out on Monday about Greeley's new 311 system. So that is now live. So there's a couple of ways to do this. I had to ask myself. So over at the table where I was seated originally, there's some cards, the 311 cards. On the back side, there's a QR code, but there's various ways that you can access this. So let me start by saying, what the heck is 311? So back in the day, we used to have 411. This is 411, and you would ask for information, or you're trying to get to a phone number or whatever, and they would get you there. So 311 works very similarly. A lot of big cities have this program as well, maybe some not so big, but Greeley's just getting it. And what this does is gives you an opportunity to ask questions. Hey, how do I report a pothole? I don't, what the council was talking about this. I need more information. So the idea is to bring your questions and to 311, and then we'll get you where you need to go. It is staffed. We have a very small too, but mighty crew that is starting this program, and it is, I don't want to say it's AI driven, but it is kind of intuitive, but we have to teach it. So the more you ask, the more it learns, and the better it informs. So if you got questions, hit it. Go after 311. So how do you access this? Okay, so first, on your phone, just dial 311. It should be active now in Greeley so that it will take you to an operator. Well, it's not an operator, but yeah. And so that you can ask questions. You can also go to greeleyco.gov, that's our website, and there's a link there for 311. You can fill out the form, and then it goes into the system, and they can let you know, respond, get you to the right person, right department, whatever it is that you need. And as I mentioned before, there's also the QR code that you can scan. So not everybody likes QR codes. So you can do the website, but you can also just go right to your phone and dial 311. So again, those cards are at the back here. Make sure I got everything on that because it is brand new. Yeah, so basically you can submit a request, report an issue, ask a question, all in that system. Okay. Sorry, Betsy, I have lots to cover. Okay, next up, I mentioned Speak Up Greeley. That is a great way to find out what's going on in the city, mostly your major projects. So you can check that out. It is one of our ways to engage with the public, to ask questions. There could be things like a survey. Right now, there's several surveys out there that you can fill out. One of them, or a couple of them, are about parks. We have some new parks that are coming in, some existings that are getting upgrades. Those are always fun. Everybody loves parks. But there's other projects as well, some of those that we mentioned tonight, that you can continue to kind of check in, stay engaged. Also, we're on social media if you like that world. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as Nextdoor. And as always, we encourage you to kind of pay attention to what council's doing. That's a great way to stay informed, know what's going on across the city, know if you agree, know if you don't agree, but also, just to kind of see what council is hearing. Their packet, all the packet information as well. You can do it in person. You can also do it online at the city meeting portal. Again, if you go to greeleyco.gov, you'll be able to see that. And that's it. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce Courtney Moody and Josh Oakes from Co-Compliance. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Josh. I should know. Thank you. Anyway, these are two of our longtime co-compliance inspectors. Senior that's not official, but I would say they should be considered senior co-compliance inspectors because you don't know what they put up with. Please join me in welcoming Courtney and Josh.
Can you guys hear me okay if I don't use microphone? Okay, I'm trying to talk loud, but he's gonna work the laptop so I can wander around. And so if you can't see me, yell at me too because I'm also short, so I can move a little bit. As Betsy said, we've both been in code compliance for quite some time, and so we can answer if you guys have specific questions you're looking for. We can also answer a lot of questions, basic or specific ones. The scope of code compliance first is we do anything outside of the structure. So the structure itself would be MAT-WAGI, which is building inspections. So we do if there's no landscape, if there's weeds, if people are pouring an extra concrete driveway, that would be us. But also, and typically we don't do much on the sidewalk except if trash cans are blocking the sidewalk. Or, and the good one is snow, if we would ever have that. Because you're supposed to clear your snow so other people can walk down the sidewalk and utilize it. So that is going to be the basic. Anything outside of the actual house or structure on the property is what we're going to deal with. This is, and it's very hard to see, but this is a basic process. It shows the process of how we do inspections. Josh, I'm sorry, I'm going to take over everything. Do you want to speak?
No, the process, we have a tiered process. We have, notices to courtesy warnings to an actual notice of violation. They can be elevated depending upon the violation. Some stuff is just educational. Trash cans left out of the street for an extended period of time, over 24 hours. We give a simple door hanger, just kind of a notice. Trash on the front yard, like a big couch, we might give a courtesy warning. It's more official. It's posted to the house. We send out an official, basically warning letter to the registered property owner that we obtained from the county assessor's page. And then if the property is just so drastically bad, we do what we call a notice of violation. And that's an official court hearing date. The property owner is required to go to that court date. And in that process, you actually go through a hearing. If they're found to be liable for the violation, then there's simple stuff as fines are issued or an abatement ordered by the judge where we, the city, would go out and clean it up, a contractor would, and then we charge it back to the property owner. And like I said, that can be elevated. It depends. If we pull up to a house and it's just something simple we want to educate, it's just a simple notice. But if we come around the corner and it's trash piled all the way to the roof, we can get a notice of violation.
I think a lot of people, is what we've realized, don't actually know who we are, or that Greeley actually has a code compliance department. And so that's why we start with education, just because there are a lot of towns that don't have it. And so we don't want to get yelled at right away. It's more of, hey, FYI, we do have this, even if you're not in an HOA, or if you are in an HOA, sometimes there's both your covenants as well as our rules.
And we truly strive for compliance. You might hear other governments, agencies doing enforcement, code enforcement. We just want compliance. We want to get the city back up to code and looking nice, and that's what we're seeking. We give extensions, we work with property owners, we work with tenants. We just want the final outcome to have a result and have everything back to normal.
So the way we get code cases are a couple different ways. One is proactive enforcement. So city council wants us to go out and observe cases. So we go out and we've got 5 inspectors total. We drive up and down the streets, businesses, residential, industrial, commercial, anything within city limits that Amy was showing, we enforce. There's something somewhere that we can do. And so we drive up and down the streets and try to find cases. The other way we can do it is residents can either call us in, HOAs can call us in and ask if there's code issues, or we can go out and check if there are code issues. So people complain. We get complaints, one of our biggest ones is the mail carriers in the winter with snow, because they can't get to the front doors of the house. So we will open cases for them. Anybody can call. It doesn't have to be a neighbor, it doesn't have to be a resident in that subdivision at all. And then usually when we're out there, if one property is complained about, we'll look around and do everybody in the same area. That way we're not picking on one person, we're equally enforcing on everyone. That way, I always tell people I try to make friends with everyone when I'm on the block. So I just don't go to one house, I go to all the houses and make sure everybody's equally treated.
We like to share the wealth.
May I ask?
Of course.
And so I'm part of an HOA where there's a lot of little private roads throughout it. Do you actively come into our development
We do.
upon request or just routinely?
If they're public streets, we go everywhere.
But we're responsible for clearing the snow and all that.
Well, and it depends, because there are a couple subdivisions in town, there aren't many, that are, the streets are public. And so therefore, our streets department would clear them, during snow removal. But with that said, the homeowners that are next to it, like a sidewalk, are still required to shovel the snow. So yes and no on both sides. I think there's only 1, maybe 2 subdivisions in town that we don't enforce on, because that neighborhood, they're HOAs, and I've just recently learned this, that in their covenants when they were built, they actually maintain streets too. So anything that's an abandoned vehicle, they would tag themselves. Okay, and so typically we don't go in those unless we get complaints, just because they're not public streets.
Okay.
And usually we'll contact and talk to people and figure out what's going on.
Thank you.
A complaint response time, there are 5 of us for the city. We do our best. We're divided into 5 different areas of the town. We generally, in non-peak seasons, which is October to April, we strive to get within 5 business days on anybody that calls in and complains. So bear with us. Sometimes it takes us a little bit. Obviously, the peak season, May through September, which we're rapidly approaching, we try to get there within 5 days. We do our best. We try. Like I said, so if you do file a complaint, understand that we'll get out there and we'll do the best we can.
Well, one thing I want to add really quick that I just looked through my back to see what was in there. If people call us and have questions, a lot of people don't want to give their information because they don't want their neighbors knowing. We don't give any of that out. When you leave your name and your phone number with us, it's for our purpose only, because a lot of times we'll go out and not know what we're looking for, or we got a number wrong on the house, so we need help doing our job. And so we'll call the person back and say, hey, what am I looking for? What am I looking at? Give me more information. Sometimes code cases aren't very simple as a bunch of trash or snow. Sometimes it's they're running a business. Okay, so tell me what's going on. Tell me when I can see it. Tell me, because you guys are the ones that live in the neighborhoods. We aren't. And so you know how things work a little bit better. And so anybody that calls in, we do not give that information out. It is strictly for our benefit to give more information and to keep you updated on what we either see or don't see. That way you're informed on what we're doing. Common violations are going to be obviously weeds because they've already started coming up this year without the snow. Trash refuse, inoperable or unlicensed vehicles, recreational vehicles or equipment that includes trailers, boats, campers of any size. Oversized vehicles will include limousines. Semi-cabs is another one. And then the snow on sidewalks. So those are major ones we deal with on a regular basis. Weeds, so I think, unfortunately, dandelions are not considered a weed necessarily, but I think we all know they are. So weed is a troublesome or injurious plant. The term weed does not include vegetation commonly recognized or cultivated or maintained as ornamental, herbal, agricultural, or xeriscape. Bless you. Things have been changing, and I know water efficiency will probably talk about it a little bit more regarding vegetation at property. So sometimes it's not always the prettiest, but there's weeds that we can actually enforce on compared to what people plant and cultivate themselves. And so there is a slight difference there, but it's just knowing we're educated on a lot of weeds, we're educated on a lot of weird things that nobody wants to know. Noxious weeds are one thing we deal with frequently, so Canada thistle, Scotch thistle, myrtle spurge was another one we recently found, and that's all state regulated through Department of Agriculture through Colorado.
And trash refuse, it's pretty self-explanatory. Any combination of trash that's on your property, other than if you're setting your trash out, you can set your trash bins out at your curb for a 24-hour period once per week. That's another one that we just give notices on a lot of the times just to educate people. I'm sure we all have the neighbors that keep them out there for 6 or 7 days.
Inoperable or unlicensed vehicle, I always find interesting because clearly this picture is going to be both unlicensed and inoperable. Most of the ones we see are not like that. They're very simple. We get calls, a lot of people will say, my neighbor's had a car in their driveway for 3 years. They're not required to move cars, which is the down part. So as long as there's a license plate and it appears operable, so a lot of that is going to be if there's flat tires. If they have a hood up and you can see there's no engine, or it's lifted on jacks and the engine's underneath it. That kind of obviousness. I recently took one to court that I know had the hood up for a month and they were working on the car and the judge decided that wasn't inoperable. So it's kind of, we try what we can, and when we go to court, it's up to a judge on how far we take it or not. So license plates are going to be, they have to have valid registration as well. And so that means either paper plates or regular permanent plates on the vehicle. And that also includes, I know we'll talk about it here in a minute, but the trailers and RVs, boats all have to have updated plates as well.
Do they have to be moved? I mean, even if they've sat there for several months and they haven't been moved, but they're still on a public street and they just haven't been moved.
Street or the property?
On the street.
On the street, that we would refer you to parking. We don't handle on the street stuff. I don't know specifically if it has to be moved. I think they can tag those. I don't want to see for parking.
Usually it's 72 hours on street, and they also have to have current tags and appear operable. Unfortunately, that's where it's a little weird because we do on the property. So any property, when it comes to street, or if a car's blocking the sidewalk, like partially on the property, partially on the street, that's all our parking enforcement.
But within 72 hours.
Correct. And our PD might be more helpful on that because that might fall a little bit under their jurisdiction, but I know that's basic. Recreational vehicles and equipment. So that is going to be any trailers, motorhomes, camping trailers, horse trailers, bus campers, flatbed trailers, and unfortunately it doesn't differentiate between a small tow trailer and the gigantic motorhome that family of 10 could live in. They're all allowed to be on the property. They can only be in your driveway if you have a front driveway for 48 hours. Otherwise, they have to be stored on the rear or the side of the property on approved surface.
Oversized vehicles, you're talking your semi-trucks, much like Courtney said, taxis, limousines, basically any vehicle that's specified in the code that's not typically associated with a residential area can't be there. Not at any time, unless they're like a delivery truck or whatnot. And that falls even in the residential parking. Again, it's not us, but you can't park their semi-trucks out front of their houses on the streets.
ever get snow and it would be cold, then we could enforce on snow. We actually look at a clock 24 hours after it stops snowing, and that's when we can enforce on it. So we'll get calls before that, we have to wait till that 24-hour mark. And what happens is we'll go out and we'll give, kind of the way Josh was talking about earlier, just a little card saying, hey, you gotta clear your snow off the sidewalk. So snow is only required to be cleared from public areas, so that's going to be a sidewalk. Unfortunately, a driveway is not public area, so if people don't want to clear their snow, they don't have to. It's just gonna be the sidewalk adjacent to any property. So we give them a card saying you got 24 hours to do it, so we give them that additional 24 hours. If it doesn't get done, we hire a contractor, they come out, do it for them, and just build the property. Because it's a safety issue, and in Colorado a lot of times, and I know a lot of times if we know it's gonna be 70, like tomorrow is supposed to be super cold, but by Sunday it's gonna be 70 degrees. A lot of times it'll melt. We give grace. We don't want to bill people unnecessarily if we don't have to. But at the same point, they still need to be maintained. We also look for north-facing properties because the isn't going to melt as easily as the rest of the property.
I have a question.
Sure.
If they're adjacent, but there's a brick wall there, they're adjacent to like 35th Avenue,
Okay.
does the city take care of 35th Avenue?
Typically, yes. Typically, I don't know because some of them they do, some of them they don't, so it's not a yes or no. I know a lot of 35th Avenue, like if the back of the property is along 35th Avenue, I'm assuming you're talking about?
This side, right?
Okay. Because it depends on the property. Some are yes, some are no, depending on, and we can chat and I can look into it for you and let you know.
Yeah, we get a whole Public Works
Yeah.
to help establish that, because Public Works does pick up certain areas, because they're pushing the snow off the streets onto the sidewalk. They don't do it for the whole city, please understand that, but there are certain areas that they will come in and remove the snow, so if you
Yeah.
let us know the area, we can find out for you. Chronic public nuisance, basically it's to reduce recurring violations that harm the public health, safety, and welfare of the city. We posted on our website, we only have one currently. Yes, it is my property that I'm.
There's two.
Is there something else?
Yeah. Matt Weggy has another one.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Waggy has one. 715 20th Street is mine. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. It's only been demoed, but it's still a nightmare. When we take them to court and we get them deemed to be a public nuisance, if we can get that designation, that just allows us to get maximum fines, generally quicker abatements, and just a quicker enforcement on that. They have to have a violation of 3 findings of liability within 120 days, or 5 of them in 12 months. So they do have to, we just don't go run out and forget to take the trash out. You're not gonna be a public nuisance. So that's just a tool for us, and we do our best to keep people off that list, or when they get on that list, try to get them out of there as soon as possible.
It's typically ones that are, the neighborhood knows very, very well and are just tired of dealing with them. We try to do it for the neighbor's sake, not our sake, just to make the community safer, make it look better for everybody's benefit. Odor complaints. We all know the smell of Greeley. And you'd be surprised on how many complaints we get about it. I know my parents, they love the story that when I first came up here to go to college, somebody asked, what's that smell? And UNC said, that's the smell of money. That's how we make our money here. And so we do have this pretty device over here that's pictured is called a nasal ranger. And if anybody actually wants to see one, we have one in our office. But it will detect parts per, I can't remember what it is now, parts per molecule on the odor and how deep the scent is. Typically it does not register in Greeley just because it's not strong enough. But we can take people to court hearings, as Josh was saying, the notice of violations. If any odor is not contained. Typically, we work with JBS a lot to make sure it's contained and all their filters are working properly.
So I understand that you do just outside noxious odors, right?
Correct.
So if you had somebody that was a hoarder,
We would deal with that.
It would
Right,
deal,
we have to come up to their property line, sidewalk,
Okay,
and
and
stop.
if it's from the property line, then,
Unless
and
we
from
got invited,
there, who deals with it?
unless we got invited onto an adjoining property where we could be closer. Who else would handle,
Like, from that point, if you're on the outside, then who deals with that?
internal smells.
Yeah. Especially if you know that it's a hoarder situation.
And I think it would depend if it's, what type of structure it is, if it's an apartment complex compared to like a single family home or a duplex.
Duplex townhome,
Okay,
or condo townhome.
okay. Because I know we've had to get, Well County involved, public health, because they can't help with interior things and help inside. Typically, when it comes especially to hoarders, we deal a lot with the outside part of it. Unfortunately, it doesn't help that much.
Yeah.
And so we try to get help with Well County and helping through that process, and even through our homeless department, just to help the mind frame and help to go on with life without restarting the issues again.
and some of those hoarding cases are horrible. I've worked them, we've worked them. And I'll be honest, there's not much we as the city can do. We can enforce the trash on the outside. We get an order that we can establish from the property line. We can do that. But you know, the one comes to mind. We have one lady that's just, bless her heart, but about every 6 to 8 months, we're back out there. We've tens of, I think she's up over 15 or 20,000 abatement costs because we've had to go out there and clean up the yard. It's a difficult situation. We do, like Courtney said, we do try to refer to Well County. It's not much Well County will do. They will go out and engage them and talk with them. We'll get our building inspectors involved too. Their hands are pretty tied with what they can do structural wise, maybe if there's issues. It's a difficult situation, but please always reach out if you have a case like that. We'll see what we can help with.
That's the treasures.
Protecting private property. I know a lot of places, especially when you get downtown, east side of town, anywhere that has alleys, it's really hard because a lot of people drive by and dump things off their bed of their truck. That's where you get couches, furniture. I know there's one property manager that I always call, every time I call her, I'm like, there's a couch behind this property. Oh, it's for you to take a nap. Well, thank you very much, but I'm not sitting on that thing. And so a couple things we always mention are no trespassing signs. A lot of people remove those, we understand, but at least it's a start. Cameras, lighting, motion detecting lights are really good as well, because typically if it's dark, people are more likely to dump things. Cameras, making sure there's regular property maintenance. And so if you're not mowing your grass, if you're not taking out the trash, it's more likely other people will dump things. Secure your trash containers and maintain cleanliness. Report suspicious activity and disallow soliciting on private property. I know a lot of people, and I see it frequently, there's a lot of no soliciting signs, which I think is great because that you don't have random people. I know there's a lot of people that have ring doorbells now, which helps as well.
Graffiti removal, I don't know if she said that or not, and I want to let you guys know that we do, the city will remove graffiti for free on private property. So we have a number, they can come out and power wash it and take care of it. That's, it starts there, just keeping the properties clean and when there's a violation and adding all the other.
And you just do it fast.
Yes,
We try, yeah, because
they're fantastic.
one place gets tagged and the fence gets tagged and then the house gets tagged and it doesn't stop.
Yeah,
This is some of our contact information. We are at a QR code now. Please reach out. Like Courtney said, I always encourage people, if you have a complaint, please leave your name. We can leave you off of the reports. It just helps us. You know how many times we go out on, well, they have a junk car in the backyard. I can't go in the backyard, or I don't know what you're talking about, or some stuff is obviously blatant and easy, but just share the information. Tell your neighbors that we'll talk with you. We'll give you information. We'll leave your name out of it.
any questions?
So I'll ask one.
Sure.
So we have a no solicitation
Okay.
sign at the beginning of our two entryways, and a window company came through and knocked at our building. And my husband at the balcony yelled out, "What do you want?" "Oh, you need a new window." "No, I don't." "No, we're here to get you a new window, and you are not allowed on the property. Leave." So then they went to the next door, where they're not living right now, in Knoxville. Then they went across to another building. I mean, what recourse do we have?
Would you guys like to assist on that?
Yes, but I'm gonna be completely honest, I was not paying attention.
Oh.
Can you please repeat your question?
So, our HOA development has like 23 buildings.
Okay.
We're building one, and a guy knocked on our door. We have no solicitation signs at the beginning of our property. And my husband said, "What do you want?" He said, "You need new windows." "No, I don't. You can't be on this property." They went to the next door. There's 6 units on each side of our building. They just went to the very next door and knocked. No one's there. Then they continued throughout the development, and more than once we're told, "You can't be on this development. We have no," and so what? So should I have called the police department the minute we saw them going from our place to the next?
You totally can, but I'll be completely honest, that's nothing but
Low
who I am.
priority.
I don't know if Betsy knew that, she probably should have invited me. The cops are not coming for that.
Right.
There is no criminal charge for that, they ain't coming. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get a phone call in like 3 hours, but they're not coming. You
So-
totally can call, but it is definitely something I would encourage you to address with your property management, and take it up with them as far as how they want to address it first, and then we can go from there. But as far as like a trespassing charge, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of what we figured.
Yeah.
That's the whole point then.
Right.
Well,
There is a municipal statute that covers solicitors,
Yeah,
and it does say if you have the no soliciting, we don't want anything, we're not buying except for Amazon or whatever the catchy phrases are.
Yeah.
There is a charge that we can cite for, but very, very rarely does it happen. There's a lot of things that we do have charges for that we just don't ever use because the municipal court does not like it. Yeah,
and I can appreciate that. It's just a real
Sure.
burden, you know.
totally.
Yeah, but.
I get it. Yeah, sorry.
I know.
Thank you, officer.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna give you incorrect information, but he's sitting right there. Any other questions?
Thank you, Courtney and Josh. And now I'd like to introduce Lauren Hilmer and Chanty Cavendish from our Stormwater Division. Thank you, Lauren and Chanty.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have the pleasure of sharing with you a little bit about stormwater and stormwater quality and how that interacts with y'all's communities. Yeah. So this is a little bit about what we'll chat with you in the next 10 or so minutes. Give you a little introduction to ourselves and our group within the Stormwater Division at the city. We'll talk about what even is stormwater, because that's sometimes some folks don't know what that is, so we'll help you there. We'll talk a little bit about stormwater pollution, essential stormwater infrastructure that we use to keep our communities safe, and talk a little bit about illicit discharge and what that is and how to report it on Greeley 311 that Amy already presented on a little bit ago. Then we'll have some time for Q&A. Awesome. So yeah, just wanted to introduce ourselves. Thank you so much for that intro, Betsy. My name is Lauren Hilmer. I'm the Stormwater Quality Administrator, and this is Chancy Cavendish. He's an Environmental Technician 3 with the city as well. We both work in the Public Works and Transportation Department, and then more specifically the Stormwater Division, and then even more specifically than that, drilling down the Water Quality Unit. And we have about 6 of us on staff, and we work to uphold and ensure that water quality and surface waters are protected within the community. And notes. All right, so what is stormwater? Let's answer that question. Stormwater is anything that falls on the ground during either a rain event or a snow event, and then runs off and then flows downstream, simply put. So basically, you know, if you think of a rainstorm or a snowstorm, which again, it hasn't happened a ton recently, but when it does happen, we can all imagine and wish for this. But snowfall or rain will fall on the ground, and it'll either infiltrate within a permeable surface or like a green, like think of a green lawn, for instance, or it'll hit an impervious surface, which we like to think, you know, roadways, sidewalks, rooftops, etc. Oh, parking lots as well, that's another one. Obviously the water isn't gonna infiltrate within that feature very well. So in a big storm, it's gonna run off and flow downstream as water flows downhill. So from there, it's conveyed into our storm sewer system. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming slides, but stormwater is conveyed through storm sewer systems like pipes, culverts, inlets, detention ponds, etc. And it's a way to help protect the community from flooding. And yeah, it's also a water quality and overall stormwater management practice as well. Also, I like to always point out the difference with stormwater. Not everyone knows, especially here in Colorado. Stormwater is obviously different than wastewater. Wastewater from your home, when you flush a toilet or turn on the sink, will go to a wastewater treatment facility where it then gets treated before it's then discharged to the surface water body. In our situation here in Greeley, that's the Poudre River and a little bit of the South Platte. But stormwater is not always treated when it hits the ground. Sometimes it's treated through natural processes, which we'll chat about. But a lot of it goes untreated before it goes directly into the storm sewer system. So just a little discrepancy there. And then I should have made a note of this earlier. The slides that Betsy printed out for you have a couple of additions compared to what I have on the slides. So I'm sorry about that. That was my slackerness paying off. Couldn't stop editing today. That's a problem. Anyway, right? So this is a slide that you guys don't have actually in your packet. But I love this illustration. On the left, it talks about pre-development. So like what Greeley used to look like before, was it 1886 when it was founded? If I'm remembering correctly. Lots of green open space, a lot of infiltration opportunities during storm events. As compared to the picture on the right, which shows a lot of impermeable surfaces, rooftops, parking lots, driveways, etc. And there's increased runoff. And so that's kind of the stormwater problem we like to talk, that we solve and try to manage. Because increased runoff creates other problems downstream. Okay. Talk a little bit about stormwater pollution. So we're obviously in an urbanized environment within Greeley. There's lots of people, lots of cars on the roads, lots of different things that can potentially impact our stormwater quality. So with those urban environments come, of course, increased impervious surfaces, like I showed on the previous slide, which then turns into increased runoff, which is something to manage. When that stormwater does come in contact with those pieces of infrastructure, when it's not infiltrating into the ground, it can mix with contaminants that are already on the surface of our streets, our roads, our parking lots, our driveways, our rooftops even, and mixes together and then will flow downstream, sometimes again untreated, like I said earlier. So it's very important to keep in mind that we're all connected and everything will eventually get downstream if you don't just pick it up like our friends at Code Compliance help us with. A few of the common pollutants we see are, think of like a leaky car that has some oil that drips out. We may not think that's a big deal, but it has a cumulative effect as it mixes with the stormwater and flows downstream. Trash, of course, like Code also talked about. Leaf litter, landscape material that might flow away during a storm event. Pet waste is a common one as well. We have dog waste bags on our table if anyone needs those. But anyway, that's the stormwater pollution issue that we have within an urban environment. All right. And now we'll move into the specifics of the stormwater infrastructure and the stormwater conveyance infrastructure. This is a little diagram. It might be hard for y'all to see, but basically it's showing where the water will be flowing. So again, we all know water flows downhill and typically respects gravity. Anyway, so water will hit an impervious surface and then will flow down, usually to like a curb and a gutter, typically in an urban environment. and then it'll be conveyed within that system to a stormwater inlet or a catch basin is another term folks use. Then it can get underground into an underground pipe, then be piped into the overall stormwater system to then flow downstream. Or for newer developments in the last like 20 or so years, it can be piped to what we call a stormwater control measure, which is basically controlling the flow and trying to control the flooding potentially downstream. So it's containing or detaining that water in that locale, allowing for infiltration to occur, and allowing for those pollutants that we talked about previously to settle out within that facility. So that's a fun little diagram about how it all kind of fits together before it hits the river. All right, I wanted to share this resource too. This is our City of Greeley Property Facts web application. And I noticed today I was on the website and they changed the color scheme, of course. So it doesn't look exactly like this anymore, but I took a screen grab just of where we are right now at the Greeley Funplex. You can see there's, well, maybe you can't see because it's kind of small, but there are inlets marked here within our stormwater GIS infrastructure. There's underground pipes, there's open channels, there's the sheep draw to the north of the building. There's a couple of retention ponds, the blue ponds. There's also some divots in the ground, which are dictating a detention pond. So it's just a really cool tool that's open to everybody on our website. You can see, oh, I didn't know I had a detention pond in my HOA or wherever. Oh, here's an inlet. Anyway, it might be helpful for y'all. And then, let's see. Yeah, I'll transition over to Shancy.
Sure. Say something. Just to talk about a few of the stormwater control measures that are in town. The first one on the, I guess the far left, that's a detention pond. They're like in most neighborhoods you see them. When it's during a rain event, you can see how the color of the water is carrying all kinds of sediment. And the purpose of the pond is twofold: water quality, and it also, due to the imperviousness, it controls downstream flooding. It acts like a buffer. So the treatment is by infiltration, and also there's a water quality box that meters the flow, so it just slows the flow through the pond. And it's doing what it's designed to do. Ponds should drain normally within 48 to 72 hours. If it's clogged up, it might take longer. It needs to be cleared out. And that leads to some of the maintenance, which involves removing sediment, buildup at the inlet structure, at the outlet structure. You can see the inlet pipe way up from the top. Trash accumulations, overgrowth. You don't want any kind of woody growth on the concrete structures. They'll can damage the structures. And down here, that lower picture, that's what's called a micro pool, and it's also a component of the detention ponds. And then there's a trickle pan, a concrete pan, and that conveys flow. The micro pool is a convenient place to store pollutants. It makes maintenance much easier. They can come in, all the sediment's there and everything, they can just back it out and they're gone. And these are really nice, fire retention or rain gardens. We're starting to see a few around town, and they treat runoff by infiltration and neutralizes pollutants going through the ground. Native vegetation is used due to deep roots, and that increases infiltration in the soil column, and that increases the pollutants uptake. And maintenance can include weeding. You have to replant, remove trash. Sometimes the media will have to be replaced because it gets like crusted over. It won't infiltrate as well. And some other control measures are grassy swells, which prevent conveyance and infiltration. Permeable pavers. We have some at Link Library. That allows water to go through the paver instead of running off. Constructing wetlands. I think there's one at Toynton, I'm not sure. We don't have many, but that detains and treats wastewater as well. Underground detention, apartments, shopping centers, and that treats wastewater stormwater, underground. And that's so we can park on top of them, that is expensive, so we just put it underground. Out of sight, out of mind though, so they have to be maintained. That's very important for all these structures to have regular maintenance, so they do what they're intended to do as far as pollution reduction and some flooding control. And I think that's all. That's all. Oh, sorry. Now we have a list of dark discharges. When we rain down the drain, and I've seen instances like that where it's actually dumped into an inlet. So any kind of illicit discharges, substances other than rainwater or snow melt, and they drain to gutters, to our detention ponds, eventually get to places like the sheet drop in our rivers. Some examples of this discharge of household chemicals, fertilizers, pet waste is a big thing to keep an eye out. So we do have the bags, yard waste. Oh gosh, I could go on. There's just so many. Concrete wash, paint washes, what else? Sediment's a big thing that we see. You can see from the picture of the pond. And I think that's about it. Anyway, there's a list of dumping residential neighborhoods, shopping centers, whatever. And 311 is a great resource. I played with it. I figured out it works. It's easy to report. And there's our website. So. Thank you.
Is it illegal to catch water?
I'm sorry.
Is it illegal to, or is that devices?
To catch
Rainwater.
water.
Like beer and water, beer.
Rainwater harvesting. Yeah, it's legal now. You can have, I think, 2 feedback gallons.
Yeah.
Yeah, within a residential, not more than a 4-plex, is it? I think that's the litigation.
Yeah, I think it's duplexes and smaller, but yeah, it's legal, it's you should have two catchment basins a big, big.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. I'd like to introduce Ben Schaefer. He's the Water Efficiency Coordinator for the now known as Water Efficiency Team, WET for short. I'm pretty sure that's why they changed their name. Water conservation, I mean, I don't know, but that makes sense. So, thanks for joining me, lovely man.
Hello, everybody. As Betsy said, I'm Ben Schaefer, Water Conservation Coordinator. And so I'm primarily going to go over the programs that we offer. Courtney did mention native grass, so I will slip that in there because we're working compliance on a few things, but when I get to that point, we'll talk about it. So we'll go over the programs, some of the key components that we do offer, and the services we provide directly towards HOAs. Those are irrigation assessments, landscape consultations, and rebates. We'll go into those in detail throughout the presentation. And so an overview of our program offerings is Garden in the Box, our landscape lecture series, the irrigation assessments, we do leak detection, so we do indoor and outdoor leak detection. We have a plant database. And so this plant database is plantsforgreeley.com. It's a fantastic resource. There's about 600 plants on there. You can search by size, by height, by width, by color, by bloom time, by water requirement. And so it's a fantastic resource for our Greeley water customers and citizens to go see what's native or adapted to Colorado climate and be able to plant that in their yard. And then we also do have a couple of assistance programs too that we're focusing on the areas of the community that need a little bit of a boost up. And so starting off with the Garden in the Box, this is a partnership with Resource Central. It happens twice a year, so there's a spring sale and there's a fall sale. And what these gardens are is it's essentially a plant by numbers design. And so for an HOA or a homeowner, a small envelope around your HOA or those entry areas to the HOA, these are kits. They range anywhere from about $80 all the way up to close to $200, vary in size. They have different kinds of aspects, whether it's sun, shade, or partial mix. You can access those. Greeley residents get a $50 off discount, and then there's a grant from the state that also funds that. So we contribute so much, and then anything above that, the state contributes funds for that, so those Greeley customers can receive that discount. And that plant by numbers guide is really easy. It's nice. You can plan following that, or you can plant your own way, and they're water resilient. And so they don't take a lot of water, they're adapted to the climate, same with that plant database. And so it's a really good option to just get that jump start around your property or in that entryway to the HOA. And so they're actually on sale right now. They're about ready to run out. So if you jump onto resourcecentral.org or go to our main page and go to Garden in the Box, you can order those. And then they have pickup in May, and then there's another sale that goes on in June, July, and then that pickup is in September. So just keep an eye out for that. We do messaging with that. You'll be able to listen closely and get those sales. Our landscape lecture series. This is an annual program that we put on. It's geared towards different landscape topics. The ones we did this year in Turf 101, just the basic general management of turf, taking care of your yard, making sure it's sustainable. We did irrigation. We did an irrigation one, talking about your sprinkler systems, how you can tune it up, how you can maintain it, identify any deficiencies, and make sure you're using that water sustainable. We had a fantastic one with a guest lecturer from Colorado Springs on water-wise landscapes and native plantings. And then we also had native grass conversion with a property owner who was a teacher. He went ahead and did a native grass conversion at his property, turned out fantastic. And so that's really the transition we're starting to see, is that those conversions to native grass. And so as Courtney mentioned, I don't have a slide, but native grass uses a significantly amount less water than turf grass. And so you think about the sites out here where around the trails, around Bittersweet Park, and the natural growth characteristic of native grass is it does not like to be mowed short. And so we've come into situations where customers are putting in the native grass, and it takes longer to establish. Whereas turf grass takes about 3 weeks to a month to be established. Native grass can sometimes take 2 or 3 years because that growing season is shorter. It's a warm season grass. It only likes to grow from about May to Memorial Day to Labor Day. And so it takes a little bit longer to get it up and growing. But once you have that, you only have to water it maybe once a month or so. And so what we've been working with code compliance on is there's a big transition towards that native grass. Well, it's maintaining the weeds while you're developing that native grass state. And then on top of that, it's not that same manicured lawn look that you have. It's a little bit shaggier. There's a little bit more growth to it. But we are seeing the transition to that way. And so with that landscape lecture series, it's a really good topic that a homeowner took care of here. And so you can go onto our website, see those previous landscape lectures. The ones from this year, they're still working on getting them uploaded, but that should be done in the next couple weeks or so. And then one of the big things that we do a lot with HOAs are our irrigation assessments. And so our irrigation assessments, we do it for all customers across the city, residential, commercial, multifamily. And this is where we send one of our staff members on site. They go through the whole irrigation system. They identify what's misplaced, what's broken, anything leaking, and give you recommendations on how to improve that irrigation system. From there, you can see in this picture, it's a scientific method using cat bowls. And so what we do is we run the sprinkler system, and we can measure how much water is going out and how evenly that water is being applied to the surface. And from there, we can give you a customized runtime that is specific to your landscape's needs. And so it's a big program that's very popular both with homeowners and HOAs, because it is a way to make sure that you're streamlined and you're as efficient as possible, because we want to make sure that Greeley is clean, safe, and beautiful. And this is one of the ways that we can cross paths with the homeowners and getting their systems as sustainable as possible.
Is there a cost to that?
Nope. No, it's completely free, and you can go on our website, the Save Water in the Greeley website, and it's greeleyco.gov/water/assessments.
Say that again.
greeleyco.gov/water/assessments. And there's an automatic sign up there, just whatever time fits your schedule, that's an open slot, just sign right up. For the full-scale HOAs, reach out to us at efficiency@greeleygov.com, because for those larger properties, it takes us a little bit more time, so we can tailor that. The next thing we do is leak detection, and we do this across the board, whether it's inside or outside. With the new utility billing portal, the customers can receive leaks after 24 hours of continuous use of more than 4 gallons an hour. So those customers will receive a leak alert, trying to track down where that leak is coming from. And so, in the winter time when the irrigation system's off, 9 times out of 10, it's a silent toilet, and it can't be seen, it can't be heard, but it's running. During the irrigation season, we can track it down to about the valve box, because everything's underground and sometimes it's hard to tell where it's surfacing. But if we come out there, take a look at your leak, we can at least give you an idea if it's indoors, if it's outdoors. If it's indoors, we can really narrow it down. If it's outdoors, we can kind of triangulate where it is, but being underground, it does get challenging at times. And so also during those leak detections, we also provide shower head exchanges, aerators, and just give you recommendations on how to better use your water. Rebates. So after the assessment, after the consultation, the leak detection, and you want to look at upgrading components, we do indoor rebates and we do outdoor rebates. So the indoor rebates, we rebate toilets. So anybody that has a 1.6 gallon per flush toilet or greater, so pretty much if your toilet is more than 15 years old, you're probably eligible for an upgrade. And so we rebate $100 for the cost of the toilet. It has to be 0.8 gallons per flush. If you take the old one to be recycled, it's an extra $25 off. And this is also one of the programs that we've shifted over into the assistance program. It's called Flush and Flow, and so Flush and Flow is available to customers who are on some sort of government assistance, fixed income, and it's a partnership with Weld County, where we do the indoor assessment, we take measurements of the toilets, identify if the foundation and the floor is adequate for replacement, provide the customer a voucher, and Weld County comes in and does the installation, and that's totally free to customers that qualify for it. And so that's become a really popular program, and so it doesn't matter if you're in an HOA or if you're in your own property, you can go online and see if you qualify.
If we replace 2 toilets, but in the last year and 2 years ago, you don't backtrack, right?
No.
You have to have it by the end of the year. Yeah, you have to have it by the end. Go ahead.
And where do you recycle your toilets?
So really long time ago when I was young, Greeley streets used to crush them up and use the toilets in their asphalt mix. Now it's Timberland Recycling Center in Fort Collins. But they repurpose them the same way for their streets mix.
And as far as the rebate, I know for a lot of older people, you've got the more higher toilets for like, or handicapped or aging, does that qualify?
As long as it's 0.8 gallons per flush.
Okay.
Okay, so it could, because for the rebate process, it's really simple. You just send in your receipt and then your voucher, and cycle it. And as long as that receipt says 0.8 gallons per flush, you're good to go. And then to transition to the outside, we provide irrigation rebates. And this is again across all customer classes. So we rebate smart controllers that have weather sensors on them, so a rain sensor, a freeze sensor, soil moisture sensors. We rebate those 50% up to $300. A new one that's really popular right now are the Ratio controllers, where you can control everything with your phone. Those are highly they're a hot commodity right now. We also rebate pressure reducing valves to lower the pressure on the system to make it more effective and avoid overspray. We rebate heads and nozzles, so the rotary heads, the ones that kind of look like the Bellagio, and you see the fingers going out, those are the rotary heads. We rebate those 50% and the nozzles, and then we rebate the heads 50% too. So everything that's listed on here, we rebate 50%. The smart controller sets up to $300. And so as an HOA, if you're looking at doing any conversions or upgrades, you have an old system in place, rather than having to tear out the whole system and start from scratch, an easy compromise is looking to replace those heads and nozzles. We used to have the Life After Law program, and unfortunately that one has sunsetted due to budget constraints. But I did want to provide a resource for Northern Water. They have a landscape grant program, and they do it across their whole service area, so it's not just really specific. It's across a large swath of northern Colorado. But it is a 50-50 match up to $25,000. But I want to bring it to your attention now because they require a consultation before you do the application. And so that consultation window is going to be opening in the next couple months. And so if you're interested in going that route, I really recommend that for any of those conversion aspects that way. And that's what we're offering right now. So any questions, we have to answer.
In terms of the consultation for parks, sprinkler parks and so forth, you work with the irrigation companies, or how does that work?
So for the rebates aspect, so the rebates, the irrigation company, they would come out and do the work, or you'd purchase the components yourself and do the work. And it's just like the toilets. You provide us an invoice with the number of heads and the number of nozzles, and then fill out the application, and then we take that. And then give you a bill credit, unless it's a larger HOA that's a large rebate package, we can still cut a check that way too. But yeah, it's as simple as getting an invoice, submitting the application, and then we give you the bill credit for that.
So after they install, then we send that invoice to you.
Correct. Yeah. So so it is an upfront cost to make the purchase and get the heads and nozzles in the ground. But once you complete the project, then you can rebate that way.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce Grant Winter from our Forestry Division of the, are you Culture Parks and Rec?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Grant is here to talk about forestry and the forestry program, so please join me in welcoming Grant.
All right, yeah, I'm Grant with the Forestry Program. We have a lot of data here. I'm gonna kind of share with you guys. So we did an urban forest strategic plan. It started a couple years ago. Like I said, there's a lot of data on some of these slides, so I might go a little quick. But if you have a question, though, raise your hand, okay? So we reached out to the community. A lot of the people in Greeley, they weren't sure exactly what community forestry is. There's not a forest in Greeley. So just understanding that it's an urban forest that we're taking care of. A lot of people ask all the time what we do, and we take care of trees on city properties, so parks, any city buildings, complex, all that kind of stuff, anything that the city owns. We mostly take care of the trees there. So we reached out to the community, and we held a lot of community events, including public meetings, public plan reviews, community surveys, all of that. So with pretty good turnout over the last couple of years on that, just getting some people invested in the trees in this community. So part of that survey is, these are some of the questions we asked. So why are trees important to you? And these are all things that trees do for you and your property and community. So yeah, the top one there, just creating shade. So. And then just which possible downsides of trees. So the top one there was just people worried about them blocking signs and all that. Which our department handles for the most part. If you see signs that are blocked, call us and we'll send some guys out to clean it up.
Is that a 311 call?
I believe it is on 311, or you can call our office directly. Okay. Yeah, pretty much any of these, if you see that, you can call our office and do 311. So reaching out for that survey, just if we have enough trees in your neighborhood, it's almost kind of split between the right number of trees and too few of trees. We believe we could always use more, so yeah. And then just having trees in your community, just how important it is to you. So it's pretty important, I think.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So in our HOA, we have the main street, and then you have, I guess they're called I don't know, where you have the street, then you have the grass where the trees are, and then the sidewalk, and then the property.
Parkway. I would call that parkway.
Parkway,
Yeah.
okay, parkway. In our community, we have several that have died, or, that we have had taken out. And I just see more and more of them failing, because it is a bit of an older community. Is this something that can be addressed by this department?
Yes. So I'll get to it a little more later, but I'll tell you, right now it's the Share the Shade program.
Okay.
So, and I'll expand on that in a little bit though, but you don't forget. Remind me about it. So like I said, this was a couple years ago, so we asked the community if the forestry department or program was able to start taking care of these parkways more, would the citizens support it? And it was overwhelmingly yes. They want us to do this. So we hired Davey Tree Company to do an assessment, a canopy assessment. So this is Greeley showing the areas of tree loss and the areas of tree growth. So downtown, kind of down by UNC, yeah, there's a lot of trees that are disappearing there. They're older trees. Lots of rental houses where people are not watering as much as they should, taking care of those properties. So if you look farther to the west, the reason that the canopy is growing is because of development. So as development comes in, they're putting a lot of trees in these new areas. So. And then just showing there that the residential area of possible tree canopy, like I said, that's that blue area. We could have more in residential, but some people are just not wanting to take care of the trees. That's our decision.
Thank you, Lisa.
So this one here just kind of shows the species diversity for Greeley. So honey locust, that's our main tree right now that we have here. Most communities, you want to have a 10% kind of even rate of trees, just to get diversity in case some disease or insect or something comes through and starts wiping it out, you've got backups. So, and you can see most of the trees for the city, younger trees, and that once again goes towards some of those newer developments. With the increased canopy, we have younger trees in the city. So we decided to take on those parkway trees, and that is this lower section here. So in 2025, we added almost 8,000 trees to what we take care of. So this is what we were taking care of before, and now we're taking care of a lot more. So, as you can see.
How do you make your parkway trees look that, like, is it on just only main streets or is it in communities?
So we're constantly doing an inventory system. So the inventory system and guys out there just constantly measuring trees, evaluating them, figuring out what needs trimmed, what needs removed. Yeah. So if you want people to look in your area, just like I said, reach out to us. We try to cover the city in about, I want to say 5 to 7 years. So again, that's looking at every single tree in the city. So, like I said, with that inventory system, we can go in there and look at ones that haven't been looked at for a while and update our inventory, measure them, figure out if they're still good, healthy trees. So right here, the annual tree activities. So the spike in there also is, that's kind of because of COVID. So we have tree cases. So we used to do some code enforcement. We're not doing as much of that now. We work with code enforcement on those issues. But it used to be us that were doing it. So you would call us and say, we have a tree I'd like you to look at. We can kind of go from there and figure out what needs done with it. But now we're working with code enforcement on that. So that's why some of those cases have changed. So this here, we decided to take on the parkways, and so expenditures did go up. And that is because we bought 2 chippers, 2 bucket trucks, 2 chip trucks. That's all very expensive. But it's able for us to do the work we need to maintain those parkways and make sure they're a little safer and less contractor work. And get into little communities, HOAs, those areas that we can get into that sometimes don't have the funds to pay for that. Also, all that parkway trimming, all that, that's completely free. It doesn't cost anybody a dime. So, so looking at what we spend for tree maintenance by our population compared to other cities, we're doing more with less. So we have it's a live dashboard on the forestry website. You can go to it and you can see exactly how many trees we've touched, inventoried, removed, trimmed, everything is up to date. It updates every 15 minutes. So you can look in that, and so we're very productive. So that's one of the things we're proud about. So just kind of going forward with more of our objectives here, just kind of reaching out to the community, promoting more trees. That's what we want to do. So with that, checking the tree canopy every 5 to 10 years. So we just did this a couple years ago. It hadn't been done for about 20 years or so, I would say. So kind of getting an update on that, making sure we're seeing where these trees are growing, where they're not growing, what we can do to make Greeley more green.
And is this on public property only, or do you help private homeowners as well.
For the tree canopy?
Yeah.
So it's all done, it's aerial photos and drones. So it's the entire city, it's private property and public property. It's just an overview of the entire city.
Do you deal with invasive trees like,
Like Russian olives and stuff?
yeah, Russian olive, also maybe Chinese elm?
Like what do you mean, what do we, I guess expand more, like what do you want?
Well, I
Like
just wondered,
removing them or?
yeah, do you address invasive trees, whether they're allowed to keep on growing or anything like that?
It kind of depends on the area, so like, I know we have invasive species in our natural areas. Natural areas, we kind of just let them do their thing. If it's a private property and there's invasive trees, it's not through the city that we would do those removals, it's up to the homeowner kind of.
Yeah.
Mhm. There's not really enforcement necessarily on removing Russian olives, Chinese elms, things like that. I guess that's not true, I guess, because I know like code enforcement, they might get calls or something if there is elms or something growing maybe in somebody's front yard or in an alleyway or things like that, so. The little ones, not the big ones. So yeah, just promoting more trees for Greeley, just continuing to share the shade program and recognizing heritage trees, so those old historical trees that we have in Greeley, recognizing those. State champion trees, if you just Google state champion trees, there was a few in Greeley, I think there still is some down by UNC, that means they're the biggest one in Colorado. So I think we still have the largest pecan tree in Colorado, so it's down at UNC. Check it out. But yeah, the Share the Shade program. So I got a banner back there. If you register as an HOA for Share the Shade, you can get 10 trees completely free. Doesn't cost you anything. We plant them, you register, the trees all come out, walk the property with you, you show me where you want the trees. So it's a really good benefit for HOAs. And if you're not in an HOA, you can do this for your own property, except you can only get 2 for your own private property.
So this might have changed from a couple of years ago, but we were exploring this program and our development runs on 29th Street and then it's back up to Highway 34.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they came over and said, no, we can only plant them on 29th because it's publicly visible.
Yep, and it has changed. Yep, it changed about a year ago.
Oh, it did?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, so they can't go pretty much anywhere, it just can't be inside of fenced areas. So if it's a private fenced backyard, it's just issues more for getting locates and us to come in there and plant it when there's dogs and all the treats they leave. So, yep. So yeah, that's that inventory I said, so evaluate public trees every 7 to 10 years. We're doing it more than that right now. So just making sure we're out there doing this inventory and making sure our trees are safe. With that is risk assessments. So I don't know if you've seen us out in the last year, we've been doing a lot of the parkway trimmings. Like I said, we've taken that on. So we've done 10th Street, we've done 11th Avenue, we've done 14th Avenue. So we're hitting a lot of these older areas that have trees overhanging on the road, trying to eliminate any risks from anything that can endanger the public with those trees. So, like I said, it's free for the residents. We come out, we do the trimming. The only time it costs money is if it's a large removal. So. We started collecting wood chips over by the Parks Department office. So we're hoping in the future to make that free for the public. Right now, all of our parks guys are kind of using it as soon as it's dumped there, they're taking it and putting it into the parks. So I think this is the first year in about 20 years that all of our parks have been mulched. So they're doing mulch rings around trees. all of that. But we're hoping to open it up to residents and other departments, anybody that kind of needs wood chips as we get a larger and larger pile for people, so. And then we're also creating an urban forestry group just with City Hall and just getting residents involved and kind of just having some more cheerleaders out there to help us spread the Share the Shade program, just getting more people to sign up for it. So like we'd love to have more HOAs, more residents, more people to do it, because this year I think we had about 4 HOAs sign up this year. That's about it. Like I said, we can get up to 10 trees per HOA. So just getting more word out there on it. It's hard to give away things even when they're free sometimes. So, and then just coordinating with regional forestry partners, that's a big goal for us. So we're just connecting more with the Forest Service, other communities, Fort Collins, Windsor, all these communities just working together to spread the word on good forestry practices. There's a couple things I didn't get to touch on that I just wanted to spend more time on. So other things that our department does, we do emerald ash borer assessments for HOAs. So that's us coming out. I meet with you, we do an analysis of your ash trees and figure out which ones are worth treating if you want to treat them, and which ones are not worth treating. So come out and give you that assessment for free. Once again, Share the Shade program. We do memorial tree plantings, so if you've had a loved one or a friend pass away and you'd like to do a memorial tree, we do those at the parks, in public spaces, so that's another thing we do. We work with code enforcement. Once again, it's for city properties. If you call us and say, hey, there's a tree between my house and my neighbor, and it looks like it's leaning into my house, that's between you and your neighbor. It's not private property, it's not involving the public, so there's not a whole lot we can do on our end, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, so far this year's been a good success, and taking over those parkway trees, we trimmed over 1,500 last year. So we're hoping to beat that goal this next year. So.
Well, that actually concludes the presentations. Thank you all so much for coming.